Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
Good morrow, everybody. This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano, thrilled to be here. And even more excited to be joined by a very good friend of mine, someone who is not only a good friend, but has become an invaluable contributor to this show on the air and off. Not only is he a great guest whenever he's on, he sends me a ton of terrific story ideas every week, a ton of great guest ideas, and is just one of our biggest promoters publicly and privately. And it's easy to understand why he's done so well as a political consultant, why he's done so well in terms of crisis communications. He's a guy that knows a thing or two about a thing or two. I am very, very pleased to welcome back to the program E. O'Brien Murray, veteran political consultant and crisis communication strategist. Obie, it is wonderful to have you. Thanks for coming in studio.
Thanks for having me. I love it as always. And that's a paid commercial brought to you by Obie Murray. and by the way, Frank, I apologize. I didn't travel with my T-shirt and hat this time, so I just got the orange on. You got to bear and wear your sunglasses to be able to see me today.
Yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great. All right. Hey, Obie, since you mentioned a paid commercial, let's start with that. I know you're a fan of Mark Halperin, and Mark Halperin has really, I think, made an incredible comeback as a media commentator and an analyst. He was at the top of the heap at ABC News, then achieved new levels of success as an author and at MSNBC, and then he was one of the people that was kind of fallen by the Me Too scandal, and slowly but surely he's clawed his way back with his Wide World of News newsletter. Then he was doing these two ways, which has gotten a lot of attention daily, and he seems more relevant than ever. He's a weekly contributor on Michael Smerconish's show. He's been on this show a bunch of times, and really just a smart guy. Even his detractors would say he's nobody would say he's not a smart guy. He's a regular Newsmax contributor as well. And he was permitted to ask a question, I think it was on Thursday or Friday, at the White House press briefing. And Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, gave a very interesting kind of commercial for Mark Halperin. If people didn't hear it, this is what transpired.
In our new media seat today is Mark Halperin, the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Two Way, a new live video platform that builds communities around interactive conversations with leaders and content creators from every subject area. Mark and his colleagues welcome all voices into discussions that are spirited but respectful. They have over 37.5 million video views, over 3.6 million watch time hours since the platform began just last year. This is new media in its truest sense, allowing the people to ask questions, make comments, and be an active part of engagement on the most important issues facing the country and our world.
Now, Obie, you talk about a commercial. I mean, that was, she must have gotten paid for that. What was up with that?
He better buy her a lot of drinks. That's all I can tell you.
No, but seriously, have you ever seen anything like that?
No, I haven't quite seen it in that detail, but I will tell you, this White House has done a remarkable job with anyone that's in there from new media across the board, whether they're in the pool and they just now are out there in the pool they weren't before, or like Mark was in the seat. And also, don't forget, with that seat comes the first question, which is magnificent. But I actually, Mark isn't just, crawling his way back up. He is on jet fuel, propulsion, rocket fuel, whatever you want to call it, because his platform of Two Way, not just the numbers of people that are on there, and not the millions that I'm aware of yet, but the quality of people who are on there and ask the questions. There's a congressman asking a question of a former congressman, and vice versa, and former speakers of the House, and so forth. It's amazing who just happens to be in the audience that they just call on and they jump right in, and then everybody across America gets to ask the questions. It's a great platform that really also, Frank, something you've always talked about on the show is, and before you had your show even, was how do we work across the aisle, or how does America come together? And we were saying a sporting event's got to do it and so forth. But Mark has really found a way to get Republicans and Democrats and independents to all talk and embrace, and to use a Michael Smerconish term, mingle. And it's phenomenal. It's really been a great job. So I encourage anyone to listen to it when they can. Sign up for it. He's on Twitter, or he's on X and other platforms. He's also got a show on Megyn Kelly, too, that he's doing now, too, as well. Another platform.
Hey, so how do you think that's going to turn out? My friend Maureen Callahan, who's another regular guest on this show, she's going to be launching a podcast on that platform. Clearly, Megyn Kelly's had a lot of success with her own podcast, but some people are saying, look, maybe the podcast market is a little oversaturated, and maybe now's not the right time for 3 new shows on this Megyn Kelly platform. How do you see it?
I think for Mark, and I can't speak to the other ones specifically, I don't know him well enough, the other ones that are doing the same platform with Megyn Kelly, he's going to get to draft off of her. So whatever his viewership is now and listenership is now is only going to increase. So for him, it's a multiplier. It's a new audience. As you said, he's on Newsmax sometimes, on your show. He's on Smerconish every week as a loyal call-in in that second hour every Wednesday. I just think it's only going to help him, and whether it succeeds on its own, I can't speak to the monetary issues they've got to do to run it, but it costs money to run, of course, but it's fantastic for him, and I'm very happy for him.
Now, for people that are not familiar with Mark Halperin, that don't watch cable news or just aren't into the new media, what makes him so great? Why is he so insightful that he's so in demand to be on Smerconish and Newsmax, and people want to pay for his newsletter and watch his 2 ways? Why is he so unique in an environment and an era where so many people are doing punditry?
I think it's because he doesn't quite do punditry. He does that mix of reporting and listening and explaining to the listener and viewers what is going on and why, not without any bias, without any slant. And any one day he'll be attacked for being supporting Trump, any other day he'll be attacking Trump, they'll be saying. And when you're getting hit from the left and the right, and you're right down the middle so often, I think for him it's a great platform in that, because it's just so insightful. And he tries to do it all with peace, love, understanding, and respect, where people don't go after each other. And there are people on there that talk about it being therapy, that they were so upset before about things being too far right, and they weren't sure about the Trump victory, and it's calmed them down. They understand things. He also, if you listen to it, you get some great insight to why things are happening in the White House from when he's down there. And his sources he talks to then. During the campaign, he was one of the first to talk about what was going to happen with Vice President Harris. So again, it's a mix of reporting and knowledge and respect that he insists upon all his participants having as well. So I think it's that whole combination with decades of experience between, again, sources and knowledge that he has that far surpasses many, and he doesn't bring a slant, which annoy all of us half the time.
So, Obie, let's get into one of the issues I've been talking about, more from a substantive than a stylistic perspective, but that's the tariff issue. I was out campaigning most of the weekend in a very Trump-heavy district, and where Trump is a rock star. He got, I think, 70%.
Frank, what are you 80%. Campaigning for again? I'm sorry, what was that?
See, for city council. I've tried
that's right. I forgot.
Toot my own horn too much, but if people want to learn more about it, they can go to moranoforcouncil.com. It's MORANO for council.com. But anyway, Trump is a rock star in my district. They would elect him Pope if they could. And person after person, both friends of mine that I would run into, but people, that, know that I was for Trump, they will come over and say something to the effect of, oh, geez, I love Trump, but he's killing me with these tariffs. Or, I love Trump, but he's way out to lunch on these tariffs. What do you see? There's clearly a lot of unhappiness, and I think that's going to continue today with the stock market slide. What do you see as the political ramifications, short-term and long-term, of this tariff policy?
Well, Frank, short-term in about 22 days, we'll find out from you, buddy. There's your
Fair.
quickest answer for what's going to happen on that one. But again, with your district, I don't think it gets taken out on there that much. But it could bring turnout down, people being unexcited. I remember in '08 when President Obama won, a thing I ran here in New York, a major meeting of center right people that came in at that point. In '08 they just fell off the wayside. They just didn't care. They didn't want to come around. And once President Obama won, they were so invigorated and excited to fight against different things. They all showed up in droves. I swear it went up 50% overnight as far as turnout 1 month to the next. And so that's an example of things here now. People just be sort of decimated financially. The thing I am always amazed at, I was on CBS this morning with Marsha Kramer with our friend JC here in New York metropolitan area. And he sort of came after me saying, all these billionaires are saying this or that. I want to say, JC, I'm not a billionaire, and I'm saying it. Mm-hmm. Difference between minor surgery, Frank, and major surgery, you know what the difference is?
What's that?
It's minor on somebody else, baby. and again, if it's your job, if it's your family's job, if it's your pocketbook, if it's your 401k, it's going to hurt. And no one can tell you it's not going to hurt, nor should they. But they are. And there's really no way to fight that. So I think the best thing you can say about President Trump on this one right now and his team is it's happening today. It should be sorted out sooner opposed to later. And what the long-term effects are, only time will tell. But short-term is a day-to-day thing when the Dow is down and anything is number-driven. But they have said for quite a long time, any financial advisor will tell you, don't look at your 401k statement every month and every quarter. Mm-hmm. Let it sit. Figure out what your long-term plan is. Things will come back around. And I'm not sitting here telling listeners, oh, take it easy. I don't care. It's you. But, where it's going to affect people every day, I think, as I've said to numerous people recently, billboards across the entire country when you drive down the road are called gas station signs and the price per gallon. And you gas up on Monday because it's cheaper, or you don't gas up on Monday and you wait for it to come down, or you gas up Monday because it's going back up. You pay attention to that. You have a basket of goods you go buy every week for the family for your meals. You know what you're buying on Friday to go shopping when you get your paycheck, and you know how far $200 go, or that full basket cost you $200 and now the full basket costs you $250. That's what people are going to feel every week. So that you can talk about the economy and what's happening in the stock market, but when you buy your groceries and what does it cost you today, a dozen eggs was a talking point. It was a billboard. But every day we know the price of gas, even though they won't buy it. Now, around the New York metropolitan area, in L.A. and Chicago, unless you're driving down the road and see those numbers, it's just under $3. It's just over. In New York, it's $3.50. Up in Vermont, it's $2.90, and anywhere in between down by Jersey and so forth. So, how do they feel it short term is going to be the question. But who can they take it out on? And that's going to be the question. And Frank, guys like you running for office today. New York City, New Jersey, Virginia, those upcoming elections are going to be something that people pay attention to. And will turnout come down? Republicans will still vote Republican. Democrat will vote Democrat. The swing Democrats, can you get them, or the independents, and where they show up? That's going to be the greatest question for a lot of this. Anyone can be an economist. The only economists that matters are the ones at home every day when you're at your kitchen table with your family. And what's the old? I've got my master's in NYU. I had a great economist that taught me quite a bit there. But and you got NYU too, Frank. You know what it's like.
I never completed my master's though. I completed an undergraduate degree, but never finished that master's degree.
What do they say? If you have two economists, you get four opinions. So and they have great ideas, but until it happens, one of the things this White House, I think, I can't say messed up on because they couldn't get out in front of this one. But before there's a Treasury Secretary, before a lot of approvals, they started cutting government spending, something that I don't think the president planned to do this quickly until Elon Musk showed up at the end of the campaign. But the minute you start cutting government supply, the economy is going to shrink. It's a fact. There's no way to avoid that. Whether that money was being spent by USAID, whether it was being spent at the White House, the Treasurer, or any other department across the country, or in any city or any state. Once that gets cut, that's less money in the economy. It's a short-term hit as well, and those jobs get picked up. But, Try telling that to mom and dad when they can't buy all the groceries on Friday because it costs more.
Right. Obie, hold that thought. We're going to continue with Obie Murray in just a minute, and then we'll also, if time permits, take some of your calls at 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. The issue that we talked about on Friday was Eric Adams making the decision to run as an independent. We'll get into that and more straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Jif peanut butter. It's that jiffing good, it doesn't really need advertising. So instead, enjoy the calming sounds of the ocean. Jif. Ooh, it's that jiffing good. Get your Jif at Jif.com.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Fear the Reaper, or don't fear the Reaper. This is a birthday bumper music selection. This is Blue Oyster Cult. This is a birthday bumper music selection from a great listener of ours, listener for a long time by the name of Michelle Marsh, who listens every week. And apparently today she turns 70 years old, and this song was her birthday bumper music request. Obie Murray joining me in studio, noted political communications consultant and advisor, analyst extraordinaire. And one of the people that you've worked with from time to time was CNBC anchor, former candidate for New York City Controller, and actually someone that ran against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Michelle Caruso Cabrera. You know, I've found that almost everyone named Michelle is kind of hot. Haven't you, Obie?
Frank. Michelle's been a longtime friend. We get along great. She was a client of mine.
And she's not ugly.
Michelle looks great. No question about it. I would gladly say that. But yeah. I have a relationship with men and women I work with that would never let me get to that point, Frank, of going near that point.
Well, I am just saying I've always had this theory, and I think it's been proven many times, is that there are certain names that have common characteristics. Sometimes it's a personality characteristic, sometimes it's a physical characteristic. And I can honestly say, I don't believe I have ever met an ugly Michelle in my life. It's a point in favor.
Frank, I could say so much. Let me just say this. Let's go back to the music for a second.
Yeah.
The worst thing about being in studio with you is this headset, because I can't jump up around and dance. When I was earlier, before I got on, I was out there, and the guy, Obie, calm down, relax, come on, you're disturbing the place. So next time, just let's get a longer wire for my headset here, so I can dance when you got those tunes going. Okay,
fair enough.
You let that change the topic. See how I just. You pivot, move on.
You're an artist. You're an artist. All right, I want to get to Eric Adams in a second, but Rich on Long Island has been holding. He was calling about this situation in Maine that I brought up previously. But Rich, you've been holding a while. What's on your mind?
Thank you. My phone was cutting in and out. I don't know if you covered this, but you were talking about the assemblywoman up in Maine, and she's been censured. You did say she doesn't have the right to vote.
Yeah, well, in the legislature, right. She's essentially been silenced, yeah.
Okay, so it's representative government, obviously. So really, they're canceling the voice of the entire district. It's not just one person. She can't represent the people that elected her to represent them.
That's exactly right. Yeah, she's been banned for expressing a controversial opinion.
You report something, I really don't question whether it's fact or not. Opinions, we disagree. But I thought you got the story wrong. This does not sound American. It's unbelievable.
No, it's insane. It's insane, Rich.
Yeah, Frank, if I wasn't working on my attitude, I'd be throwing my own SHIT against the wall. This cannot be happening in America.
Yeah, so, they passed a resolution, 75-70, prohibiting her from speaking on the House floor or voting on legislation until she apologizes. And she said she's not apologizing. So as of now, she cannot speak and she can't vote. And that leaves her constituents totally unrepresented. I might invite her on the show tomorrow, because if they won't let her speak in Maine, at least maybe we'll let her speak here.
Good man. And that's one of the reasons I support you, and I'm with you. And every one of us should be outraged about this.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Rich, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Frank, on that, why did they vote her out of the House? Instead of censure, why didn't they expel?
I guess because they were trying to pressure her to apologize. But it's good. I'm gonna invite her on tomorrow and see. I will ask her that very, very question. Had you followed this story before I mentioned it, Obie?
I had not followed it. It's very interesting. I mean, I also am curious if they couldn't expel because of the narrow margin. Oftentimes, there's rules about 2/3. And here you got 75, 70.
Actually, that sounds familiar, actually. I think that actually might be what prevented an expulsion from taking place. It could be.
And how long can they hold her at this, and therefore they could argue in court that it becomes the equivalent of an expulsion because taxation with representation without there being an open seat for a special. And she probably would get reelected by her people almost.
Oh, I'm sure after this she's going to be a celebrity in that district. I mean that'll be big if that comes to fruition. So we'll see. If people are just tuning in, Obie Murray is my guest. Obie, for people that are unfamiliar with your background, obviously you've worked on a lot of campaigns. How would you describe your career trajectory? You've had a number of different careers.
Way up and way down, Frank.
No, but honestly, if somebody asked you, kind of the elevator pitch for the things that you've done, your 60-second resume, what would it be? What would you say?
I didn't really write the resume. It's about the people I've worked for, the men and women I've been fortunate to work for have just been terrific, and their teams. Either I walk into a place that has a team in place, or walk into a place that doesn't have a team and put it together. Work for Democrats and Republicans, and basically any race that I've touched has become significant in some way, shape, or form. I don't get the easy ones along the way at all, but I mean, Michelle versus AOC in the Democratic primary was phenomenal, but it was middle of COVID. And then she ran for comptroller and came in third. She beat Weprin and Queens and different things you can point to, and then I do stuff in Borough Park with the Orthodox Jews or Bob Turner George Pataki, Rudy Giuliani, 93, 94, and then government relations along the way. So it's just been a whole breadth of things. And the bottom line is either we get out in front and we get the message out about what we want to get done, or we're quiet enough and we operate quietly enough to win before people see we are where we are. So I just think it's much more about the person. Are Republicans and Democrats, nothing too far right, nothing too far left. And I call it the way I see it. In the room, I'll say what I believe, and if you don't want to hear it, then you don't want to work with me. But outside the room, we're all in unison and lockstep, and the teams, as a leader and a manager, an advisor, I think I get great kudos from those that I've worked with before, and I've been very fortunate.
At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight, joined in studio by Obie Murray. Hey, one of the things that there was some divided opinion about is the political effectiveness of Cory Booker's 25-hour speech the other day. I don't think anybody takes anything away from him in terms of what a magnificent physical and mental achievement that was, to be able to speak for 25 hours without eating, without sitting. I mean, it's extraordinary. One of the most extraordinary acts from any senator in American history. I guess where there's divided opinion is to whether this is going to serve him politically. Some people say that it catapults him to the short list of 2028 frontrunners. Others say that this hasn't done much to enhance his political stature, either in Jersey or on the national stage. How do you view it, Obie?
I view it, if that's all they got, they've got more problems in the Democratic Party right now. I think, when you look at the leadership they have there right now, there was a poll last week saying AOC can beat Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary here in New York State. And the irony is that of all the things that Chuck Schumer can attack her against, it would all help her in a Democratic primary, being too far left and so forth. I've actually, Marsha Kramer's show, I called Chuck Schumer a few weeks ago, lame duck Chuck. And I've been saying this since December. When you look at his age, he will not be majority leader, most likely given the current map and some reckoning going on in the Senate, for another 4 years. He'll be as old as Harry Reid was when he retired. And right now the Democratic Party there's no rudder, one might say, but they need a messenger, they need a message, they need someone they can follow. And they won't really get that till they have a nominee for president, see where they want to go. And I said on your show, actually, after the joint session addressed by the president, Bernie Sanders gave a marvelous speech that night, no matter what you believe in, because he's authentic. And it was Bernie, true Bernie. And that's what he and AOC are doing across the country. I followed AOC very closely, obviously working against her with Michelle. And there are parts of her you can be very impressed with, parts of AOC that you would not have been impressed with in 18 or 20. When she first ran for Congress in her first re-elect against Michelle. The parts that would not be impressed, she has gotten rid of. She has overcome numerous things. She's much better on her feet than she was. I think she's less apt to go to areas she doesn't know until she's ready for them. And I think her on the road, she's becoming much more formidable with Bernie Sanders. Now, that being said, if the Democratic Party is being driven that far left and led from the left, that doesn't help them, I think, across the country when you have to be more mainstream. But it shows the vacuum that's there. And right now, then you've got Chuck Schumer, a older white Jewish man from Brooklyn, and then you've got a younger black man from Brooklyn as well, and Hakeem Jeffries. The House will go Democrat next time with all likelihood. I don't see how it doesn't. If it doesn't go Democratic, you're going to have a historic election. And given the tariff conversation we just had earlier, that's not about to happen. So why not let Hakeem Jeffries be the one? Why not Chuck Schumer decide on his own terms when to leave? Mitch McConnell left leadership and stayed because there was a Democratic governor, and therefore the appointment would go to the Democrats. Right. So he couldn't leave the seat entirely. If Chuck Schumer left tomorrow, he's got Kathy Hochul. In a year and a half from now, with that election going on, you may not have a Kathy Hochul up on top, and you don't know who that governor is going to be necessarily, given what happened to her last time. So Chuck Schumer's got a lot of deciding to do right now about if he's going to seek re-election or not, what he can do for the party. But Hakeem Jeffries, I think, is the future of the party right now, or at least should be given that chance, and get out in front, lead, because you're going to be leading the House next time in the majority. Let's see what he can do instead of the debacle that they had of the House that night in the joint session when nobody stood up, nobody clapped when they should have clapped for atrocious activities that they were doing as the Democratic Party was that night. And then Chuck Schumer now being told he's going to lose to AOC. I mean, leave on your own terms, Chuck, and let's see what we can do and let the party lead.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Obie Murray. Speaking of New York, obviously there's a mayor's race coming up this year, and we have an embattled mayor that is seeking re-election. We also have a former governor that left office under ignominious terms, and now he's trying to mount a political comeback. Eric Adams announced on Thursday that what was rumored to be occurring was actually occurring. Instead of him continuing his reelection as a Democratic candidate, instead he's going independent. Here was a portion of his announcement a couple of days ago.
There isn't a liberal or conservative way to fix New York, but there is a right way and a wrong way. And true leaders don't just know the right path, they have the guts to take it. I've always put New York's people before politics and party, and I always will. Some leaders choose rhetoric over results and fail to make working people their North Star. But the values of a working class base, pro-public safety, pro-worker, pro-quality of life, are still there, standing strong, even if many who share them have left the party. Those are my values, New York's values, and I will always fight for them. I had hoped to fight for them again in the Democratic primary for mayor. And more than 25,000 New Yorkers signed my Democratic primary petition. But the dismissal of the bogus case against me dragged on too long, making it impossible to mount a primary campaign while these false accusations were held over me. But I'm not a quitter. I'm a New Yorker. And that is why today, although I am still a Democrat, I am announcing that I will forego the Democratic primary for mayor and appeal directly to all New Yorkers as an independent candidate in the general election. I firmly believe that this city is better served by truly independent leadership, not leaders pulled at by the extremists on the far left or the far right, but instead those rooted in the common middle, the place where the vast majority of New Yorkers are firmly planted.
Obie, it's clear that Mayor Adams was going to have a tough time in a Democratic primary, probably unlikely to win. Did his prospects of getting reelected just get better? Did they get worse, or did they remain the same with his decision to go independent?
They most certainly increased significantly, I think, Frank. If you look at it, we've got a special election in Staten Island in 22 days on my calendar here as I'm flipping through here. The New York City election is 210 days away on November 4th, and the primary is 77 days away. The math alone, when he was down in single digits, in 77 days to come out of being having the case dismissed and try to turn that message around, given that crowded Democratic field and running to the left in that field to win, was not a path to victory for him at all. I think when you look at what he's talking about now, he has an opportunity for the next 210 days to be a viable candidate, barring any polling that says he's getting his ass kicked. And I don't see that necessarily happen. He may be down low, and they'll start picking up more. But you could have a four-way. I mean, it's amazing. You're a great reformer for elections. You and I have had disagreements on what we think is right and wrong, what needs to be done for various reasons. But the bottom line is we know the system isn't perfect. You may have a situation now where you have a Republican, a Democratic candidate, a working families candidate, so a progressive candidate running, and Eric Adams, plus there's another independent, but I don't believe they get anywhere. And Eric Adams, if he was not the sitting mayor right now, would not be able to get anywhere. But when you're a sitting mayor of New York and you have the media and the name ID out there, they will know who he is. The question is, will they like what he's been doing between now and the next 210 days, what he's turned the city around? I mean, people forget, when he became mayor, we were coming out of COVID. Crime was astronomical on the subways. Now we have these horrible incidents, and there is a perception problem, but it's not what it was. But people still hear the stories, and he needs to work on that. And that has been down from some of the information he's been giving out in the past couple weeks. He has a great police commissioner now in Police Commissioner Tisch, and I think what we have here is an opportunity for him to turn around the public safety issue. But I really want the popcorn concession in this race because it's going to be everybody watch this thing because anything can happen.
So, as an incumbent running for re-election, you've got a lot of advantages that a typical third-party candidate doesn't have. You have incumbency where you can, govern and be on TV every day if you want, be on radio every day if you want, and maybe make up a lot of the gap with free publicity that other candidates would have to buy. You have a number of other things. Obviously, Eric Adams' long experience and popularity with the black community certainly inures to his benefit. I mean, I think would see him getting, at the very minimum, I don't know, 7-8%, right? Is that too generous?
No, I think that's a little shy. I think if you look at some of the numbers in the general election, historically, Curtis Sliwa last time got 312,000 votes on the Republican line. Nicole got 316. So there's your numbers on Republican candidates in New York City at a base. Lee Zeldin, as a Republican candidate for governor, got 542,000. So those numbers can go up quite a bit. And you had basically 37% turnout for the governor's race. In the mayor's race, the Democrat usually gets about 750,000 votes. And so the question is, out of that million or so, 1,050,000 votes, what happens beyond that? And that's about a 17 to 19% turnout. I think if you can get the turnout up to 23 and 25, Eric Adams can win it, and your percentage you're talking about is a pie that's grown and increases the votes. He had 289,000 votes in the Democratic primary on the first ballot before the ranked choice voting kicked in. Is he going to get all 289? No, but he starts off with, let's say, 250, 200 minimum, and then a Democrat in that race got 753,000 votes. If those go to the Democratic, and historically Bill de Blasio had about the same and so forth. So when you have that number, how far down would a Cuomo go in that race? How far down what would happen if there's a progressive in that race too, out of that 750? And how many independents would show up that normally don't show up in the mayor's race, that show up in the governor's race? So you're talking about 1 million votes, and you have a situation where if he can put together 500,000 votes, he could win this thing, and that's less than 50%. That's about a 30 to 40% number, given the number of people in this race.
Okay, really interesting. A lot of the things that you just said. Just to take a step back from a lot of the numbers that just got thrown around, though, New York has elected a third party or independent candidate a couple times. The most recent example was John Lindsay in 1969. It also happened in 1950 with Vincent Impellitteri. Do you see a scenario where Eric, and it sounds like the answer is yes, you do see a scenario where Eric Adams can win this as an independent candidate?
Yes, I do. I think it's a very narrow path as we sit here today. As things come together, and if he can grow the turnout, that helps him. And based upon, is it a 3-person race or 4-person race, and who is that third or fourth person? If Andrew Cuomo wins the Democratic nomination, there is a possibility the Working Families Party will nominate a progressive. And with matching funds in New York City, you have a progressive candidate today that has said, don't send me more money right now, which is kind of crazy because you use that matching fund down the road.
Right.
But, there's a spending cap, and you can raise the money and get matching funds, and you could have 4 very well-funded candidates for the general election that have name ID and money to get their message out.
Lastly, on this front is, let's say it is a 5-way race in the general election with, say, Andrew Cuomo as a Democrat, Zohran Mamdani as the Working Families, a progressive third-party challenger, Eric Adams as sort of I don't even know what lane he'd be in, whether it's right-wing or centrist or left of center, but Eric Adams as an independent, Jim Walden as an independent, and then, Curtis Sliwa as the Republican candidate. Is there a scenario with those 312,000 or so votes that Curtis got, or maybe a few more if he's able to get some of those Lee Zeldin votes? Is there a scenario where Curtis Sliwa can win this race with 35% of the vote, given a divided Democratic electorate?
The answer would be yes, but, and even Curtis has said this, I think, this weekend, was will the press cover him? And frankly, will someone like Eric Adams eat into some of those 300,000 votes that Curtis Sliwa starts off with, or can Curtis turn out the vote if he's viewed as credible in this race? So with a vote, if you have to get to 500,000, Zeldin got to 542, the Republican nominee in the past. I don't know that Curtis could do it. Nicole didn't do it, didn't break 400, and neither did Curtis. I don't know that they can get it done, but they can be competitive, which means anything can happen. We know why we have Mayor de Blasio when John Liu fell out and when Anthony Weiner fell out. And things happen. We don't know what's the hangover going to be. If Cuomo wins Democratic nominee, what's the hangover going to be that hurts him in the general? Things that he may be viewed at as, if it's bail reform, congestion pricing, those things, if they wouldn't really hit him in the primary because they help in the primary, will hurt him in the general.
So
nursing home issues too.
And just to be clear, Zeldin got over 500,000 votes in New York City when he ran for governor.
That's correct. Hochul, and that was about 37% turnout total. Hochul got 1.2 million.
So I think that may surprise some folks, given Curtis's history in New York City, that Zeldin in New York City got almost 200,000 more votes than Curtis Sliwa did.
That's correct.
That's wild. That's wild. So really, those are the 200,000 people that Curtis needs to find and try to turn out if that kind of a scenario is to be possible, right?
That would be correct. That's just the question is what the turnout will be. And J.C. Polanco and I were talking about it on air this morning. And he used to be commissioner at the Board of Elections, and he's like, he thinks I'm crazy to think turnout could be 23 and 25%. But when you have four well-funded candidates, Whalen, I have nothing against them, but historically independent, Leo Hindley ran and put millions of dollars behind his race. You just don't get the bang for your buck as a true independent from day one.
As somebody that worked in independent politics my whole life, I absolutely I can state unequivocally that you're absolutely right. All right, before we get out of here, Obie, before we run out of time, we're airing in Chicago now, and something that is directly related, well, maybe indirectly related to the political discussion is a discussion of death, because nothing speaks to life after death like folks voting in Chicago. There's always a lot of discussion about how people handle their loved ones passing at the time of the funeral and in the aftermath, but this is one of those things that tends to make a lot of people uncomfortable. But we're seeing now a transition to, I think for the first time really, a majority of people that are dying are now making the transition to being cremated rather than being buried. What's this all about, Obie?
I can't speak to the cremation part. It's interesting. I've talked to somebody who said they want to get cremated because they don't want to take up more land and so forth. But for me, it's sort of, my father died last year. And I've had other friends as I get older. I'm 58 now, whose parents have passed away or so forth. And I've been at the cemetery when people say, "Oh, how do you get to the plot now? Because are you allowed access to it?" And it becomes very tough and very expensive and so forth. I've also had friends who have lost their spouses after being married for a short amount of time and so forth. And now the question becomes, what do? We had the will, we had the living will. Where does he or she want to get buried, and what family? And you're new in the family for the past couple of years, and I mean all this stuff going on. And the example I use is presidential. That these people that become president, before they're elected, there's a funeral plan. Every year it's renewed. When they're no longer president, it gets renewed again and again, and their advance team takes care of it. And I just think the fact that people have the conversation about cremation is one thing. And a buddy of mine who passed away up in Vermont last year. The funeral was packed, but his wife still had to figure out what to do. And okay, what do we do with the funeral home? And this stuff, have the conversations earlier and have it when we're all happy and figure out what we want to do so that, your loved one, when the minute you pass away, doesn't have to go, what do I do next? It's much, lift the burden for them and make that easier, I think, is something. And my dad was cremated, and I know other people that have done that, and it's all for whatever. But I haven't done it myself yet. I'm single, so it's a little bit different somewhat, but someone's going to get that burden. If I got hit by a truck out here as I leave the studio tonight.
Yeah, well, don't leave it up to me, Obie. Let's make sure we get that squared away before you
just make sure there's plenty of scotch, Frank.
Exactly. That's a guarantee.
But yeah, I mean, I'd be curious, what are people talking about among their families, and people want to face it. I had a guy I did some business with years ago for his wife's anniversary. For their anniversary, he bought a cemetery plot. And it was his way of addressing the problem, and I commend him for it.
Yeah, no, it's very mature.
But have you guys talked about it, your family at times?
Yeah, so New York has recently legalized human composting, which is becoming all the rage. And at least when we spoke about it most recently, my wife said that she wanted to be made into compost and then become a tree in the backyard. She wanted a tree planted with her remains. So that was, I'm going to make sure that that's still her wishes, but that was where she left it. I know people think I'm joking when I talk about this, but I'm not. I have not done this yet because of the expense involved. But I would love to be cryogenically frozen. Now, if that can't, happen for logistical purposes, then I like the good old-fashioned just burial. I prefer that to the ashes.
Frank, I recall, and I guess there's so many things we've talked about over the years, but you had talked about this on air before a number of times.
Yeah.
Did I advise you to try to find a sponsor and give that to you as part of the package for their sponsorship?
That's true. I'm still going to work on that. There's only so many hours in the day. That's the thing. Obie,
Frank, let's hope there's many more hours in our future. How about that?
Amen. Especially mine, because I'm hoping to be frozen and thawed out in a few thousand years. Obie Murray, it is always a treat to have you. If folks want to follow you, the best way to do that, I guess, is
don't. You're better off.
Agreed.
On X, O'Brien Murray. OBRIEN MURRAY.
On Twitter and on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook as well. Among the Morano, what do you call yourselves now, Frank?
The Moranoholics. Yeah,
the Moranoholics.
The few but the proud. All right, Obie, thank you, my friend. It's always a treat to see you. I appreciate you coming in and
thanks for having me. Hey, and by the way, those donuts keep you excited. Everyone's dancing up a storm out there now.
Naturally, Obie Murray. Hey, we're gonna do 15 seconds of fame in a moment. If you want to be heard for 15 seconds on any subject, you can sound off at 646-720-0635. That's 1-646-720-0635. Straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco.
Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco Original Equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. If you want to be heard for 15 seconds, call now, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635, because it is time for
The Other Side of Midnight. This is 15 Seconds of Fame.
Neil.
You know, Frank, if you fill the city council with frozen corpses as elected officials, the city just might run better.
That's a fact. David.
Yes, if the election for mayor appears to be close in the final stretch, look for Andrew Cuomo to come out with Maury Povich and the children of de Blasio and announce, Andrew Cuomo, you are the father.
Mike.
Morning, Frank. I'm a Nader Raider, voted for him twice. And as far as Buchanan is concerned, this is all I've got to say. Go Buchanan, go Buchanan, go Buchanan, go. Did you ever hear that before?
Never, not once. Thank you, Mike. 646-720-0635. I voted for Ralph multiple times as well. Vinny.
Happy Monday. Daily reminder. Government hates you.
There you go. Thank you, Vinny, for that reminder. What would we do without it? I appreciate that. All right. We'll let Vinny have the last word. If you, tomorrow, Alan Tonelson is going to be here. We're going to discuss a little bit more what's going on with these tariffs. And but by the way, I don't think he has an issue with answering questions as well. If you want to call in with questions while he's on the air, you're welcome to. We'll do that because he can certainly explain these tariffs better than I can. I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but Jay North from Dennis the Menace has passed away at the age of 73. So I'm sorry about that. And then tomorrow also Jeremy Scott from Into the Power Abnormal. He's going to be here as well. He's got a few stories that he's covering that a lot of folks may have missed. If you want to email me, you could do so, frank.morano@redappleaudionetworks.com. Even if you don't have anything particularly interesting to say, you can just say that you want to go on my email list, and I'll add you to my email list. Just drop me a line, redappleaudionetworks.com, and say, add me to your email list. So we'll work on that. All right. A lot of other stuff to get to that we will tomorrow, and including some big things I'm working on for later in the week. Frank Morano, good day.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/Real ID. That's tsa.gov/Real ID, or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.